Attleboro residents had an opportunity to learn about the beginnings of historical preservation in Attleboro. Marian Wrightington of the Attleboro Historic Preservation Society held a seminar on Ruth Nerney, a lifelong Attleboro resident and community supporter who helped to start the efforts to preserve the history of Attleboro. We spoke with Marian to find out more about Ruth Nerney and her commitment to the community.
I'm Marian Wrightington, and I was quite pleased to be asked to speak tonight about Ruth Nerney because she is such an important part of Attleboro's history. I am a member of the Historic Preservation Society, and I am chairman of the Attleboro Historical Commission, so I kind of do history every day in one form or another. Ruth was one of our older residents who lived here in Attleboro all of her life, and she gave so much to the city, and she loved history so much, and she was involved in everything historical. She was a charter member of the Attleboro Historical Commission, and she just did so many things that were so good for Attleboro to preserve their history and keep it going and keep it alive. Our history is so important here in Attleboro. She was born Ruth Seton Parmenter in 1908, and she lived down on Parmenter's Corner on Pleasant Street. At that time, the Parmenter family was already an old family name here in Attleboro. She went to Attleboro schools, and probably a lot of you have heard this story, that she was Attleboro's first girl cheerleader. We had cheerleaders before that, but they were always boys, and when Ruth came along, she was the first girl cheerleader, and she had a lot of energy, so I'm sure she was a great one. We could probably do a whole program on Bill Nerney, too, for that matter. But the two of them were so community-minded and always doing things for Attleboro, and they worked together. And one of the projects that they did was this grindstone. This grindstone was from the shuttle shop that was out in back of their house. They actually lived in the Nobbycrafter house, which was Colonel Blackington's house. Everybody thinks that Colonel Blackington lived in the Blackington Inn. He never lived in the Blackington Inn. He lived in the Nobbycrafter house across the street, and then he had the inn built as a double house for his two sons. Our program director is always trying to come up with different programs, and this year, because I realized I had those stories written by Ruth Nerney, I offered to read them as a program, and so we made it into a program. But then we were also talking about possibly maybe each season having one personality from old Attleboro highlighted, and somebody would get up and talk about them for a program.